There we are. All right. So how you doing, Jeff?
Jeffrey, I'm doing fantastic.
Oh, sorry, Jeffrey. Most people like being called Jeff is I'm sorry, that's instinctive. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is just going to go over verbal agreement, and which is just saying that you understand that the video and audio is ours to do with as we please. And once we're done with editing, we'll send you a copy. And the only thing that we ask is that you share it and tell us what you think about it. All right. And if you agree, give me a thumbs up. Awesome. I'm going to do a 3, 2, 1 countdown, introduce you, hand it over to you, then we'll take it from there. All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to another episode of Memories of Us. And I'm excited today. Today we got my brother Jeffrey. And yeah, he's here today to tell a little bit about himself and yeah, a lot about what he does. And hopefully you guys get a lot out of this. How you doing, Jeffrey?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I am doing well. So where are you from originally?
Well, it's funny you got this background in San Francisco. So I spent most of my adult life in San Francisco.
Okay.
And but I was born on the East Coast. I was born in Virginia and then grew up in New Jersey. And I always felt like I was supposed to be on the West Coast. I don't know why.
Right.
So I eventually moved out here after living in Manhattan and New York City, and moved out to San Francisco, stayed there for quite a while, and then LA, and now I currently live in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well traveled. Very well traveled. What part of Virginia are you from?
I was in Falls. I was in Falls Church. Had a lot of family up in Northern Virginia.
Okay. See, I'm originally from Virginia as well.
Oh yeah, where?
Yeah, Newport News.
Yeah, I learned to swim there.
Yeah, Newport News, small world.
Yeah,
Was out there until I was about 15 and left there, went to Washington, D.C., hung out over in Federal Heights, did all kinds of things out there, and moved out to Colorado 1992. Been out here since then, kind of traveled around like yourself, been all over the place. So yeah, let's talk about the work that you do and how you got into it.
okay.
Yeah.
So I work with men. I work with men who have gotten to a level where things don't seem to work and they're costing too much. And what I mean by that is it's costing them in terms of health. It's costing them in terms of mental and physical health. Their lack of fulfillment, connection, emotional intimacy, self-love, externally, their body, how they're treating their body, because it's a go hustle world that we live in.
Right.
And people are burning out. And they're encountering overwhelm, which is stressing them out. So I work with entrepreneurs and people who have gotten to that spot where it's actually taking more out of them than it's bringing back into them. They can be successful, you know, and from the outside, it can look wonderful. But on the inside, it's not the experience that they're wanting or needing. So on some level, they've built a life based on external values and not based on internal values, answering the question of who am I?
Okay.
Which sounds like such an easy question. And most people, if you ask, who are you? They'd be like, hey, I'm Jeffrey. I'm a coach. But that's, my label. And that's my identity or occupation, but that's not really who I am.
Right. Okay.
Right. So it's a difficult conversation internally that people need to have. And most people haven't stopped to do it. It involves looking at parts of you that you may not want to look at, or that you've, moved past on some level.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it, because some of that avoidance can be the same type of thing that happens when there's an irritation in an oyster and you produce a pearl, right? So it produces something that looks good on the outside, and you've kind of wrapped up the part of you that's been the irritation and the shiny thing, but you still haven't dealt with that part of you. Um, and so it's about living a wholehearted life
Yeah.
and integrating all parts of you so that you can live in a state of joy, peace, flow, purpose, and passion.
Wow. Now, how did you get into the work that you're doing?
I was my first client.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. So I was exactly who I'm talking about. I lived in San Francisco. I lived in Pacific Heights. I owned 2 buildings, one in Pacific Heights, one in North Beach. I had a good job. I had a lot of fun. And it just didn't feel like it fit. And there were, at a certain point, I believe, at a certain point, especially in levels of success, you've kind of covered off your basic needs. On one level, I don't know if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Very vividly. It's been a while.
Yeah. So essentially, the external, place to eat, people around you, things like that. So as you go up, food and shelter and all the basic things that humans need to survive, then you get to the last bit of the triangle, which is self-actualization, which is the internal part. And so the tools that get you there are not the same tools that will take you through there.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No,
So
that makes perfect sense.
right.
Yeah.
So, and on some level, we're taught in school how to be good workers, not necessarily how to make money and manage it, and how to communicate. Those are all other things that school's lacking. But we're taught certain things in school and by society, and certain things are available, and we're rewarded financially for behaving particular ways.
Right. Yes.
And then once we get to that spot, then we kind of we end up looking in the mirror. And what we've been avoiding starts to show up. And so, it's, I think everybody at a certain point in time, no matter whatever level of success that they have as defined externally, has to address who they are.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that starts to really show up, and it starts to knock on your subconscious. It starts to show up in projections, in relationships mirrored back to you, where you're dating the same person, but they just happen to have different names, but some of the behaviors and experiences are the same. So, I was just, I mean, this sounds weird, but on some level, I was sensing that and becoming kind of bored with myself, and my stuff, my way of being. I had used up the enjoyment available through the original design of my life, which was an external design. I had muted parts of myself. I had shut down other parts, and I hadn't addressed other parts. So although nobody else needs to do this, but I essentially walked away from a lot of the things that I had, and I shifted careers. I went from sales and living in San Francisco in a nice place to selling everything and moving down to LA and to start acting, because that seemed to be in my life the one thing that really started to light me up. And it actually was the one light in my life that was guiding me to wake up. And on some level, it saved me. So I moved to LA, and I started acting. And one of the first things that I did was I went into an acting class very quickly after being down there with Larry Moss. And I don't know if you know who Larry Moss is, but he's an old school, amazing coach, acting teacher. And he's absolutely legit. And so, as opposed to some of the coaching in LA, which is learn how to say 3 lines correctly, because that's what you're going to get in the audition and stuff like that. He's like, he works on you as a being, so that you can craft a story and inhabit the person that you're supposed to be creating.
Mhm.
So it's really a deep process, and in order to do that with any success, I needed to address so many parts of me that I had avoided, and it was terrifying, to be honest with you. I remember the first day I was supposed to go up and do my scene. The second day, the first day that I was there, I was I was watching how he just had X-ray vision into who people were. And so the whole class was watching him just pull out these parts that people didn't see or they had been avoiding, and and were definitely in their way of being a full human, so that they could mold and use those parts of themselves to create this character.
Mhm.
And I was like, this guy is going to destroy me. He's going to see parts of me that I don't even know I've been avoiding, and pull them out, and it's going to be so scary, and maybe they're awful, and and I remember just saying, okay, so the only real solution is just to accept it
Right.
and to let it be, and just to say yes to what he says and what he sees, because he's going to see blind spots,
Mhm.
and to take the coaching, take the notes, and go do the work.
Yeah.
So that was actually the most peaceful answer that I could come up with, and it was life-changing. So I took the coaching, and the coaching is essentially, work on who you are, become a full human, emotionally, physically, within your movement, within your voice, within how you breathe. I mean, it's really just a lot of things that people forget. They're never taught. They don't understand, because we as humans have a much richer, deeper experience than most of us are aware of, or that we even consciously inhabit. So I started doing that. I started discovering parts of myself, and I started really tapping into what my genius was and is, which is working with people, and on some level doing some of what he did, but helping people pull out their genius
Mhm.
and connect with that, and become who they are here to be. And some of the people that I'm working with are very well accomplished, and they're at a place in their life where they're like, this is no longer about success. Like, what? But I don't know what it's about.
Right.
So we work with what I call developing the legacy and designing your life. So the legacy, some people think of, oh, well, I created X, or I have my name on a hospital or
Mhm.
something like that. And certainly that can be part of your legacy, but underneath of that, what's your intention? What's the energy that you're bringing to the world? What's the actual impact that you want to make in the world, on the people in the world? That's not about you,
Yeah,
but about what your purpose is in this incarnation on this planet.
I like that. I definitely like that because I can relate to it on so many levels. Going through the processes I've had to go through, a lot of self-realization, in healing. You know, pulling out those parts that just and having to go back in there and tackle those things. Pretty much just go in there, dissect. I think it's important. You know, and a lot of people do have trouble with doing that as well, because they don't. And that's why I appreciate your work, because they don't know where to start. A lot of people don't know where to start, and it's a scary thing when you have to face those things that you hold so dear. Um, for me, it was the things that I felt that I needed to protect me, until I realized there was something else. But pulling out those things and fixing my attitude, my mindset, and staying focused, coming up with a routine, things like that, knowing how to talk to someone. And it took a long time for me to understand that as well.
I think you say something really important. It is on some level where whether people consciously or acknowledge it and understand
Mhm.
it, or whether it's just operating in the subconscious, it is about fear and protecting yourself, right? And that's why people are living an unexamined life. Because on some level, to be honest with you, if you really take the time and start to examine yourself and work on the healing, because we live in a society that is toxic and difficult on people to remain whole and healthy. So if you actually do that, you focus on who you are and doing the healing, you will find that things that you developed from that unhealed place, unexamined place, no longer fit anymore.
Right.
It could be your relationships. It could be the way of being. It could be the place you're living. It could be your job. It could simply be your perspective on all of those. But you will find that some of those things just drop off because your vibration, meaning who you're being, shifts. Right. How you interact shifts. What your priorities, values, and what's important to you begins to shift. And people don't like that. And you will also find that some of them will protest in different manners, some verbally, some by leaving. And you also find that some of them just don't really fit with what you're trying to create.
Right.
So, it may just be with love and peace, I release.
I like that. I definitely, you said something earlier too about choosing the same person, just different faces. Now, that's another aspect that I've had to struggle with, through relationships, because I was going, why do my relationships fail? And I had to hold myself accountable for some of them, but for all of them, because of my choices. And like you said, I finally figured out the pattern. I kept choosing the same characteristics, just in different forms. So I took a break and I said, you know what, no more. Not until I can fix my mindset, but also raising that vibration, I find helped as well. And changing my outlook about the way I saw those things. And primarily when I realized how, and I hate the way that this sounds, but how unimportant it was to me, because I was bored, like you said, bored with it. And when I found this other thing, my purpose, my path in this world, I decided I was going to dedicate myself to it. And it became everything that I am. Right.
Well, I mean, you say something that's really interesting and important is about choosing the same person and doing the work. Before you do the work, you'll find that you have a type, right?
Yes,
that could be, you may consciously identify that type as external, but that type subconsciously is you also have a subconscious chosen type, right?
Yes.
And so, because there's many people that fit that external type, but not all of them are you connecting with. And so on a subconscious level, there's actually a word for it. It's called the imago theory. Right. And so what imago is where you have an unhealed part of you from your childhood, and it's calling in the same experience to heal it and have a different experience.
I like that.
But if you're operating from that wound and you haven't healed yourself, then calling it in, you're going to repeat the same experience over and over. So the way to do that is to heal that wound so that you don't keep repeating, but you actually have choice. Because when you're operating from a place of subconscious versus conscious, which is what the healing does, it moves it from subconscious to conscious, so you can make a choice. So that the choice is in the conscious, but if you're operating from the subconscious, you kind of don't really have a choice, though you think you do, and you'll rationalize what that choice was. Be like, yeah, I chose that. But really, it's not always the information that you use as why you chose it. If you dig down a couple of levels, you'll find that there's actually many other reasons that you haven't considered about why you're choosing the things you choose in your life.
Yeah. That's a lot of, breaking yourself down, actually, and actually being truthful with the choices, like being truthful with them. You may be messing up.
Right.
And like you said, I love that you're talking about the conscious and the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind and how all of these things work together. Because I don't think most people that I've talked to, we always talk about the subconscious.
Right.
And we dive deeper into it. And I'm always going, okay, but what about this side over here? Because it kind of coincides, but this one over here kind of supersedes once you understand the connection between it. And I love how you said we search out those things. Our souls are searching out those things. And I can relate to that. I just look at it from a more spiritual aspect. My soul is looking for yours to connect with. And so I allow myself to be guided by that. And it's my soul just wants to connect with you and have fun. And if I can feel that, that tingle that you get when you know that you're connecting with someone, right? And it's because your soul is happy. It's happening. I love that feeling. But then there's times where my soul is like, no, I'm not. And so that's me. That's my sign of saying, okay, this is not for me. So in a lot of ways, it's like I will stay out of your way and allow you to be who you are. And I'm going to continue my journey and be who I feel that I need to be in this world,
Right.
And that connection. And everybody connects in different ways as well. Just because my soul didn't connect with this individual doesn't mean that the next person's soul won't,
Right.
And yeah, and it's just a fun enlightening experience when you can see people for who they are and not for what they're hiding.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, you said something really interesting, which is, you'll listen to the feedback from your soul, and many people will, after a bad experience, say, I had a hit about that, or my instinct told me that, or I thought I shouldn't have done that, and I did it anyway.
Right.
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 And so they're not listening to the communication which is available.
Right.
They're following something that needs to be karmically executed, or some unhealed wound. And we're really talking about, on a larger level, is your own personal awakening, your own personal healing, similar things, and the shift and evolution of you as a human. And so in order to actively do that, it involves two things, I believe, and those are the two things that are necessary for connecting with humans on a deeper level. It involves curiosity, which means no reaction, just curious. Right. So somebody or something says something that's upsetting or offending or triggering, you just stay curious. Right. That may be a sensation you're experiencing. And compassion. So those are the two things that are critical for your own personal evolution and for meaning, connection to yourself and healing for yourself, and connection to anybody else, curiosity and compassion. So
because I can relate to it on so many levels. We was talking earlier and I was going, you said something that really just dawned on me, because I realized at that moment when you said it that, okay, that's where my journey began. When you experience something very traumatic,
right,
you start to look for those things, certain things to kind of push you in the right direction, so to speak, and that's where you begin that journey of self-realization, because you go through something traumatic, you begin to play those traumatic things over in your head. Most people do get wrapped into it. I was one of the fortunate ones. I figured out how to not get wrapped into it, but to look at it and ask myself, why? Why do I feel this way? What does all of this mean to me? And that journey allowed me to find peace in a way, a lot of peace.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying we're speaking the same language.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, and so you're exemplifying what I was just talking about.
Right.
And even more, before we came on, you were talking a little bit about how you were tapping into music to activate memory and connection to good feelings and to family and to the potentiality of recreating those feelings and those experiences in whatever manner they may be.
Yes.
And there's so many things in that. And the first one is self-awareness,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So no, and with that self-awareness is, and you also said that, you know, you had grief around it, but you're addressing that grief, which is a real feeling and needs to be felt and addressed. It doesn't, you don't need to swim in it all the time, but feel it. And you can feel, we're complex animals and humans are, you
Yes.
can feel grief and gratitude at the same time, and
Yes.
joy,
Yes. We was talking
right?
about that earlier. I was scared, you know, when I was saying I was sitting back after my daily routine, it was just sitting back and I started thinking about my grandmother, my mother, and all of these people that have already gone before me. And it brought me back to a place in my childhood where you know, my uncles and everyone was around, and there would be Motown music in the back,
Uh-huh.
you know, or in the background. And everybody was so happy, you know, it was family dinners. It was, and, you know, we was all hanging out at grandmother's house. And it took me back to a place where things were simple and everybody was still there. And as I mentioned before, you know, it takes me back there because I don't get that feeling anymore, you know, at least not on that deeper level, because they're all gone. And I've been alone for so long. So I still search those feelings of comfort and connection with them, just to talk with them, let them know that I'm okay, you know, and that's what works for me. It's something that I figured out
Right.
during my journey. And so I was pretty fortunate to go through the process of becoming and connecting and wanting to understand this world and how we all are attached to one another in one way, form, or another. And how can we capitalize on that? So when we do connect, we can transfer this energy to them to want to follow their own journey. You know, be the example, be the inspiration for someone else. And so I figure if our own journeys can inspire someone else to take that journey as well, that's a good feeling. We want to leave people better than what we found them, right?
Right.
And the only way that we know how to do that is through that connection, and knowing how to communicate efficiently to one another. I think that's a huge problem in that journey as well, that communication with yourself and others.
Yeah, I mean, you say a couple of things that I think are profound. I mean, I love chatting with you. You know, the first is the essence of what you're talking about in that experience is complete self-responsibility and accountability, right? For your experience and ownership of your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And not putting it on any place else, or, you know, falling into a victim role of, oh, everybody's left me, you know, they've moved on to, you know, another into another dimension and another experience. And what's fascinating and interesting too is that you said that you don't experience that, but you have those feelings inside of you, literally. At the turn on of music, you generate and reawaken those feelings and that connection to that experience inside you. So it's always available. So our joy, our love, our connection is all inside of us, because I believe, we generate our feelings of love. Nobody gives us love. They behave lovingly to us. And we either receive that or we don't. And we get loved up in a way that we don't normally love ourselves, and we can learn from that and then start loving ourselves up that way. Or we, you know, take that and we just absorb that as, you know, external validation and ways of being loved. So, but that inside of us, that loving feeling, that's generated by us. and by our acceptance of that behavior, because that behavior from one person feels loving, that behavior from another person feels like, I don't want it.
Right.
Right. So we decide how open our heart is, how we receive things. So, taking those two examples, one person from love may feel, okay, so, that feels loving. And from this other person, I don't want that. It could simply be that our interpretation of the same behavior is different.
Mm-hmm.
Based on, some part of us and things like that. So it's really just about, I believe, where we are and how we interpret other people. I know that when I was going through a divorce and I was experiencing grief and things were falling apart, it was so fascinating, because I was in this coaching program and I got feedback from multiple people about their experience of me at that moment.
Right.
And one person was like, oh, you just seemed like you were so angry. Another person was like, wow, you just seem really kind of shut off. Another person was like, you were like all love and I had to run away. I mean, same person, everybody's different,
Right. Yes.
versions of me and view of me. And also, we interact with people differently, right? They have different energies, or they interact with us. They can see different
Right.
things. We
Yeah.
all see things through our perspective. So, I will tell you, all of them are right. You know,
Yes, I totally agree.
just like you have that inside of you to be generated. You have everything inside of you. We have everything inside of us. And that again goes back to how important it is to integrate all parts of ourselves into us so we become wholehearted,
Yeah,
and so that we're not driven by our subconscious.
that's true. I was pretty fortunate and unfortunate in that area, how I learned how to accept people for who they are and not for what I want them to be. And the I was taught that by a narcissist, and I learned the hard way. A true narcissist, like, whew, that was an experience, right?
Well,
But what she did,
as a child.
no, this was in my early 30s when I had my son. Uh,
Okay.
it was my son's mother,
Mhm.
and she was definitely a handful, man. She was a handful. She definitely had her way of thinking. I didn't really agree with the way that she thought at that moment, so it used to be a conflict and get angry and fight with each other and things like that. And finally, I was like, no, this is not what I want. So it took a little bit. It took her beating me down for a little bit, and going to a place of surrender, because I was tired, because it was like, why does it feel like I'm fighting a wall right now? And something said, why are you trying to make her something that she's not? Who's to say that her actions that you feel are wrong, that she does not feel that they're wrong? And who are
Right.
you to tell her that they are not?
Right.
So I began to step back, take a breath. And from that moment on, it was going, I can only control myself, the way I feel, and the way not react, but the way I respond to her. So and I realized the difference, because you can react to something and you're going to get a reaction back. And a lot of times, if it's positive, it's positive. If it's negative, it's negative. You're going to get it, get it back. Now, in response, the person that's looking for the negative reaction doesn't know how to respond to that response. And
Mhm.
so it puts me in a place of where, okay, it doesn't bother me.
Right.
It doesn't, I can accept you for who you are, regardless
Right.
of who you are. And, you know, eventually it's all going to make sense to one of us, the
Yeah.
one that matters the
You,
most.
you took your power back.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you started to step into, I'm just reading in this, but it sounds like you started to step into who you wanted to be in the world
Yeah.
and the experience you wanted to create. And in order to do that, you have to be that experience. You
Mhm.
can't sit around and, somebody's mean to you and you're mean back to them because they did it to you and want a peaceful experience. It's
Right.
impossible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So even if somebody's mean to you, the only way you're going to have a peaceful experience is to choose to be peaceful.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't control everybody around you. You can control your experience of the world. You can't control their way of being. And you will find, though, that when you shift who you are and you decide to be peace, love, joy, whatever that happens to be, rather than reactive, decide to be responsive, that when you do that, then other people will change or they'll leave.
Yes. Yes.
One
And
of the
I've
two.
had that happen.
Yeah.
Most people, since I've been on this journey, I have changed a lot, but not in the sense of destructive wise. I've changed in a way to where I'm focused. I have a routine that I follow. My passion in this world is manifesting itself. And that right there is my driving point. The people I interact with, I enjoy going and visiting with the men that I visit with in their in the darkest places, because I've been there, and having the tools to climb out of there and the willingness to sit in that space with them is something for me. It's a sense of appreciation for them for allowing me to occupy that space and that time with them. And I just enjoy it. I really do. But like you said, it's finding that purpose, your purpose in this world, and giving that energy out, and letting them receive it the way that they need to receive it.
Right.
Without judgment or, being forced on something or anything like that, but just allowing that energy to flow and allowing them to be comfortable with that energy that I'm getting, but also being receptive of the energy that they're giving me as well. And, and just walking with them.
Yeah. I mean, the way that you're sitting with people is amazing, because if you don't have an attachment to being received in a particular way, then you don't have attachment to anything has the potential to generate frustration, anger, irritation, victimization. But if you're just sitting and you give or hold space from a place of no attachment, people feel that, they relax, and also it's just a gift, right? A gift has no attachment to it. And you literally are a gift because of the hard experiences you've gone through, and the work that you've done as a result of going through them. And in the process of going through them, you have an expansion available in your heart where you can see people in the same road or the same experience or the same emotions, and you can hold them with deep compassion and understanding and empathy of having traveled some of the same road. And that right there is a gift, and your desire to provide that to the world and to other men is your gift and is a gift to the world.
I appreciate that. I've always looked at it like I'm just a servant. Now that I know what I'm supposed to do, I just feel like I want to serve. I'm a servant, and that's what I tell them. I was like, look, I'm here to serve you. Let me visit with you. Let me make sure that you have everything that you need. And like I said, it's the steps getting there. It's a lot of work getting there, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I really would not trade it for the world. I really, in some aspects, I really wish I hadn't had to go through the experiences that I did. But in I would say 90% of it, I am glad that I did, because for one, I had the experience. I had the opportunity to be things that I wasn't, because if it wasn't for my mother and father, I wouldn't be a son. I wouldn't be a brother. I wouldn't be a grandson or anything like that. I wouldn't be, what I am, an uncle, cousin, whatever. So I appreciate that as well. I appreciate the fact that I was a father, had that time with them. It's sad that my son had to go, but I know that he's still here. And for me, knowing that my little dude is still watching me,
Mm.
It makes my heart happy to know that he is still smiling on his daddy.
Mm.
And I don't feel so alone anymore. Even though, I have my friends around me, I don't have too many. And I may spend a lot of time alone, but I'm really not alone. I still have my family there. That energy is still there. I can still hear him calling my name, daddy, daddy, I want to go outside. Daddy, can I get some ice cream? All of those things. But again, it's that energy that was given to me from them, to allow me to unlock myself in this world. And the only thing I want is those who want to receive me, receive me. Let me give you what I have without no attachments.
Mm.
And I don't need anything from you, but I want to see you well upon your journey, because I know at one point in your life, after this encounter that we have, I want you to remember what I gave you, and I want you to give what you have to someone else. Pay your energy for it, and start that cycle of feeling good about yourself, of self-healing, and taking self-love.
Right.
That's a huge one as well. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people say self-love, and I think there's a huge misunderstanding in communication when people say that. I go, no, self-love is more of, take care of yourself as if you care about you. If you can take care of your loved ones, look at how you take care of them. Are you taking care of them better than you? Now up the ante. Take care of yourself on the same level. And then together, you guys will begin to build that, like you said, that foundation of understanding and connecting more, being passionate, more passionate.
Yeah. I I I think most men
Mm,
don't really understand what self-love is. I'm not sure that a lot of people do. Some people may look at it like, oh, it's massages and it's a day out and stuff like that. And that could be an expression of it. But really it is just like you were saying, it is much deeper.
yeah.
It's behaving lovingly and choosing love the same way you would for somebody who's deeply important to you. Could
Mm,
be your spouse, could be your significant other, could be a family member, could be somebody. But how would you behave to that person? Or if there's nobody in your life, recalling how that either that was you were given that to somebody else or felt that to
mm,
somebody else and express that in some way, or how other people may have done that to you and
right.
been lovingly expressing things to you. I know that in relationship, I've learned how to love myself better.
Right.
And because people love me differently than I love myself. And so, or they may love parts of me that I don't dislove or dislike, but they're just, the water I swim in. So I don't see them
I
as
like that term.
special or something else. And so when those parts are really highlighted or given attention to, then I start to recognize them
Mhm.
and start to awaken a little bit more, because I believe that we're all just walking each other home.
Yes.
And yep, and just learning about who we are. And I think that one of the gifts that you can really give yourself is, who am I
Mhm.
and what am I here to do? And what is it that brings me the deepest joy? Now it can be a person. What brings me the deepest joy is my daughter or my son or something like that. And that can be amazing. Um, and there can also be something in that of, what is it about your relationship with your daughter that brings you the most joy?
Right.
What is it about that relationship that makes you the most lit up? Is it the discovery and the wonder? Is it how they look at you? Is it so when you start to ask those questions, you start to actually learn more about yourself and how to love yourself more. Because here's the thing, loving yourself has gotten a bad rap sometimes.
This is true.
It's
Yeah.
selfish. You're just doing stuff for yourself. Well, guess what? You can't give from an empty cup.
Yes.
So you can't actually, it's the same thing. You can't help people if you haven't helped yourself.
Exactly.
So the biggest way to be depleted and to feel burned out is just to focus externally and not have any balance and not maintain who you are and that relationship with yourself. It's
Yes.
critical.
It's very critical.
So, if you're going to go, if you still go to the gym, maybe you eat right, but you're not taking care of your emotional well-being, not processing things, not feeling things, not, developing yourself internally, emotionally, listening to your intuition, you're going to run out. And then you're not going to serve anybody else. And guess what? When you start to run out internally, emotionally, it starts to make you depleted physically. And when you're depleted physically and you start going from low resource moments, meaning hungry or tired or thirsty, and that those show up as also emotions, and you do that for a longer period of time running depleted, it starts to actually impact your health.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then that gets worse and worse. And then you can end up with a disease or, other issues, or you can end up with tension in your body. I mean, when you're holding something because you're not expressing it, because emotions are literally energy in motion in your body, and you need to process that and move that through. If you're holding emotions, if you're holding that tension, you can develop a knot in your back, or they're not called yeses,
Yeah.
right? They're called
Yeah.
knots,
They're
meaning
called
you're
knots.
not doing what you need to do, which is processing these feelings. You're not. So this is literally a physical manifestation of what's happening internally.
Yes.
So you can call the looseness in your body a yes and the tension a knot, but instead we just focus on the knot.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about how would you recommend somebody getting those knots out? Because I know the way that I've done it, through a lot of self-discovery, a lot of healing, things like that, releasing stress, those things that didn't that don't matter, and focusing on things that do, things that make me happy, right?
Right.
Um, and yes, a lot of people may say that it's selfish, and I would say, if that's what you want to call it, you go right ahead. But I'm
Yeah.
not ashamed of it. I am not ashamed of taking the time to take care of me,
Sure.
because, like you said, if I take care of me, I can take care of other people. I was that guy, and I had to learn the hard lesson. I got beat down, got that cup filled in, and then I realized I kept trying to give and kept trying to give, and I had nothing else left.
Right.
So it wasn't until I had to slow down again and begin to release. So now, whenever I encounter certain situations, I know I can absorb it and release it, and don't have to. I leave it in those moments. So the moments that is given to me, it doesn't go past that.
Mhm.
I as soon as it's given to me and the conversation is done, I release it back into the world, because now I realize my place. I cannot do anything with this, and I need them to figure out the answers. I'm only there as a partner to walk with you.
Right.
It's coming back to you. So to help you understand, well, to help you figure it out, and develop your own way of walking through it, and understanding it, because it's
Mhm.
going to be individual, correct? And and that's important for people to know. Don't try to base yourself off of someone else's journey. We can have the same basic fundamentals, things like that. And yes, we need mentors like yourself to help these men do it, because we have a lot of work to do on ourselves, man. We really do, um, just to be better human beings for ourselves and for our family members. That's a huge thing.
Right. I mean, you know, we still have a society where, you man up, or toxic masculinity, or, a lot of judgments on how men may be. Baby boys are still born, and, parts of the genitalia are removed.
Mhm.
We, there, and there's not a place for a man's feelings to be acknowledged or be expressed, or even a place where men are, I wouldn't say educated, but are expressive about that.
Right,
And
right.
so what you have is an emotional literacy that exists among women
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't exist among men, because women, from a very early age are like, well, what did he say? How do you feel about that? Are you okay? And men are like, yeah, let's play basketball.
Yeah. We kind of
Stop.
ignore it, right? And kind of go in our own separate ways and things like that. Now,
Right. And so, there's a lot of stuff that happens
yeah, yeah.
that needs to be processed. And so, some of the processing happens, for things in the past. And as you move through, how do you stop those knots, which I think was a question you were starting to ask,
Yeah.
is several things. One is it's important to breathe. Most people don't know how to breathe. In fact, the number one bestseller, or one of the bestsellers on the New York Times now, is a book called Breathe. And it talks about how our breathing is affecting us physically, emotionally, mentally. And the trick is that we live in a society where people don't know how to breathe, and they're breathing mostly in their upper register, which is interesting, because when you're having panic, fear, and anxiety, that's where you breathe.
Right.
And most people habitually are just breathing here. And we have a society that's experiencing panic, fear, and anxiety. So they're hand in hand. So when you shift your physicality, you can also shift your emotionality. So when you shift how you breathe, you can start to move that energy through. I would also say body movement, body attunement, noticing how is my body, what am I experiencing in my body when I'm having this experience, when I'm talking to this person? Am I tense? What's going on? Like, when I'm working on this project, what's happening in my body? Am I moving that tension through my body? And how am I feeling internally about this interaction emotionally? So attunement and awareness, self-awareness, is critical. In fact, actually, it's one of the first keys to emotional intelligence, is your own personal attunement and awareness. So that's critical for people to understand how to be more present,
Yes.
and how to be in their body. And I also believe that we are meat antennas. So we're sending and receiving information, right?
Yeah.
So consistently, like you're in a room and you're standing here, and all of a sudden you turn around and somebody's been looking at you. They haven't made a sound.
We call those stalkers.
Feel them. Yeah, you could feel them looking at you. And when
Yeah.
you turn around, they do this thing. Right? We've all had that. We've been on both sides of that, right? Like, how'd they know I was looking at them? Or like, why didn't they just talk to me?
Like,
So,
don't just stare at me. Come on and talk to me. Don't do that.
right. So, and there's truth to I feel you.
Yes.
Right. We can
Yes.
feel somebody. We can be in a room and somebody walks in the room. We can feel it.
Oh
Right. So, and where we feel it is there's an energy field that's measurable, up to 8 feet outside of us in a healthy human being with our current measurable tools. Right. So we are electromagnetic beings. When they test your heart, they use an EKG for electric, right? So we're sending and receiving information, and the more grounded we are, the more healthy we are, the further that information travels.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's a life force. So, that managing that energy and moving that energy and being aware of that energy and knowing that our bodies are these tuning forks, right? They're like clocks or tuning forks, right? You hit one and then the other one starts to vibrate. or you put a room full of clocks and eventually they all start to, gong at the same time, right? Or there's a house full of women and their menstruation cycles start to align, right? So we are constantly communicating energetically, and I believe that we are, and these meat antennas, and the cleaner our antenna is, meaning emotionally, and the food that we're eating, the water we're drinking, the way we're behaving, then the further that vibrates out and the more attuned we can become to the accuracy of that information we're receiving.
Right.
So that's some of how you can start to remove the knots.
Okay.
And a good massage every once in a while helps.
I've been wanting to get one of those. It's been a while.
Yeah.
The last time I had one was probably, 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
That's about time. It's
Well,
about time.
I'm never really stressed. So I never really thought about going to massage or going to a chiropractor, things like that. I stretch, I do yoga, I work out, eat well, being a former bodybuilder, it's like those things are habitual to me, especially when I'm focused on, I know how to eat clean for the most part, which is something that I implement in my support groups with the guys and everything, the ones that live in Loveland, Colorado. If they meet with me, they get to work out with me 3 times out of the week. I help them out with their meals. It's part of the process of healing. One of those dedications that I gave to them, I said, we're going to focus on the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical. These are the 4 fundamentals of your healing process. If you neglect one more than the others, you do tell the difference.
Right.
But like you said, it's helping those guys become more self-aware, just by implementing simple things, knowing how to form a different friendship from the tribe that you've just now entered.
Right.
So we did, like I said, I deal with grief. So I deal with child loss, parents, siblings, things like that. So every man that I encounter has a different way of approaching it. And but if you can give them the fundamentals, like you said, that baseline, as you start to get up to the top and form it out, the baseline becomes easier to stand on once you have that, and you become more aware of where you're standing and who you're around, So now with that being said, how can people get a hold of you, man?
Well, I am running a 5-day challenge called Life on Purpose that starts on October 24th.
Okay.
I would love anybody that wants to learn about how to have a more embodied, powerful, purposeful, passionate life to come. There's free information during those 5 days that I'll be sharing with people. It's on Facebook. It's in a Facebook group. You just send me. I'll give you the link,
right? Yes.
And you can catch that, and people can contact me through that. So this will be the first of those, and then I'll be doing several others after.
Okay, and we are connected on Facebook, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I kind of, I get so many and I have to weed them out sometimes, and so it's like sometimes I get some that I'm just like, yeah, no. Those are the girls that want you to come to the cam rooms. I'm not doing cam rooms. They can keep that to themselves, or the hackers, right? But to each their own. I think it's pretty interesting and funny to see it. But yeah, you connect with me on Facebook. Send me that link. And we can put them up in the groups. Also, what you got coming up other than that? Like anything interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working with. I'm going to be launching a group course after this. It's a 3-month program, and so the 5-day challenge is giving a kind of a preview of what that might look like. The 5-day challenge is going to give free information, so there's no obligation for anybody to do anything. But I'm really excited about this 3-month program. It's called The Beginning, and it's really going to be super powerful. It's about community. It's about tapping into your own personal power and freedom, and passion. So, and it's about the evolution of man and men. So I know that that's something that you're really deeply embedded in and committed to the success of men, and you see the importance of them, in through connection and through emotional awareness. And I think, that those are places where men fall apart, and as we get older, the group of people that we hang out with drop off. And so the number one, or one of the biggest issues that men have as they get older, is they don't have any close friends that are specifically theirs. So they may have groups and things like that, but so it's super important. And it's also super important to connect to who you are in this stage of life. So we all are going through different seasons as we move through life. And it's very important for you to kind of tweak and evaluate as you go, and look to people who have ideas and experience to help you do that successfully, where you can learn the hard lessons. I mean, it's all there available for us. But I've had enough hard lessons. I'm happy to share and make life easier for other people.
I'm right there with you, brother. Man, I'm tired of the hard lessons. If you give the audience some words of encouragement before we step out of here, and for those who are listening, his links will be down in the bottom, so you guys be able to reach out to him. I love talking to this man. This guy has so much more to give you. We just give you guys a little bit, but also, if you guys haven't found out yet, we are doing a spinoff podcast, and Jeffery will be a part of those panels. So if you guys want to know more about what he does, or just want to tune in and just listen to the tools and stuff that we will be giving you, please tune in. And so yeah, Jeffery.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, in terms of words of encouragement, I would say that when you decide to take full responsibility for your experience of life, your life will change. Because when you take full responsibility, you have full power for that change. That doesn't mean that I'm not saying this to victimize anybody, to say anything's anybody's fault. It's not about fault. It's about claiming responsibility for your experience. Things happen, we decide to experience them. Things happen in a family. One person, becomes a drug addict. The other person becomes, a CEO. Like, we process things differently. It's important for us to select an empowering way of processing things, and then our lives will change dramatically. So the two things are, number one, decide that everything that is happening is your responsibility. Number two, find other people anywhere, a group, a mentor, a coach, Tony, myself, whoever it happens to be. There's more than enough resources. Reach out, get support from people who are in line with that way of thinking and can support a transition if you're not already in that way of thinking.
Right. Yes.
And it will change your life.
Oh, man. I love that, man. I just got goosebumps when you said that. I was like, man, that's, whew, I felt that in my heart. I felt that in my soul. That felt good, man. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you again. And, to the audience out there, I want to say thank you for tuning in for another episode of Memories of Us. Hope you guys enjoyed this. And then, like I said, you guys are going to see a lot more Jeffery in some of the projects that he has going on. His links, like I said, it's going to be down below. Reach out to him, get into his program. You guys it's going to change your mind. So with that being said, you guys keep your head up, stay safe, and remember, you are loved and you are worth being loved. Until next time, be safe.
All right, brother. Thank you.